and interactive displays as well. 8:05 on a Wednesday morning. What we put into our bodies has a big impact on how we function, Riaz.
Yeah, big questions with this. Thanks very much, Doc. Dr. Jennie Brand-Miller joining us right now. Welcome. You are the author of The New Glucose Revolution. I've been on a health kick of late, watching everything I eat and understanding glucose, cortisol, insulin, all these sorts of things. So break this down, the glycemic index. Tell us what that is.
The glycemic index is just a tool for rating how fast blood sugar levels rise after you eat certain carbohydrates.
And you're looking at the quality of the carbohydrates, and then you go from the index to the glycemic load. Tell us the comparison between the two.
All right. The glycemic load is just the multiplication of the glycemic index times the amount of carbohydrate in the food. But I think people can just concentrate on glycemic index. These are the low GI foods here.
And low GI is a good thing because that means the blood sugar, the sugar from the foods is going into the blood slower, correct?
That's right. The carbohydrate in those foods is slowly digested and absorbed, and the glucose rises more gradually and falls more gradually. Good for you.
Okay, so you know, I see the fruits, I see the rice. Now the pasta to me is interesting because traditionally I would think that would kind of work against us with what we've heard about carbohydrates with pasta.
That's one of the myths. Pasta has a low GI unless you put it in a can and you cook it and cook it and cook it till it's sloppy.
Okay.
Okay? So pasta in any shape or form, but you know, of course you want to have it with a tomato sauce, not a cream sauce.
Okay, and it doesn't matter if it's whole wheat pasta, just any pasta in general you're saying?
Any pasta white, that's part of a Mediterranean diet, proven to help prevent cardiovascular disease.
Okay, and let's go to the flip side with the examples of high GI foods. Which are ones we should be aware of?
Well, these are the foods that are where the carbohydrates are digested and absorbed really quickly. The blood glucose spikes, which is bad for us. So white bread, it's obviously really fluffy, easy to digest and absorb. Same with potatoes and potato soup. This is jasmine rice. Jasmine rice is the same glycemic index as a pure glucose load, 100. Wow. So very rapid rise and fall. And the same with most of the breakfast cereals. Cornflakes is one example, but even the whole grain flakes have a high glycemic index. So this is something about the glycemic index you can't tell unless you actually test it. And so people do need to have a look at the glycemic index tables in things like my book, or online we have a free table that people can search online.
See, the table's one good thing, but say we're going out to a restaurant and we're having a meal where all of these elements are combined. How do we keep track of this index for meal planning?
Well, just think about your carbohydrate. Which is the main carbohydrate in each meal? Is it your toast? Is it for breakfast, or is it the breakfast cereal? Just make one change. So make sure you're having a low glycemic index breakfast cereal or a low glycemic index bread at lunchtime. At dinner, maybe you have a rice meal. Yeah. Make sure it's a basmati rice, not a jasmine rice.
And making those important choices, and you know, having a high GI, not necessarily a bad thing if you're very active. Is that correct?
No, that's true, yes. If you're very active, sometimes the glycemic index needs to be high in order to get the carbohydrate into the muscles faster. Yeah. So, and one thing people can do, they don't have to eat low GI all the time. Sometimes there are easier ways of doing it, and this is the only supplement I recommend for that purpose, that some forms of viscous fibre, like this one, PGX, slows down the rate at which the carbohydrates are digested and absorbed. Okay. And that's a useful way of making sure whatever meal you have is low GI.
Well, there's all kinds of great tips. You know, I was going through this book last night, The New Glucose Revolution. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on with these types of tips. It's all about making good choices when it comes to the diet. 8:09 here on Breakfast Television, taking a break.